Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of MotiveWave. This video I'm going to explain a crash course, my interpretation on how to set up your programming via the software development kit of MotiveWave. On top of that, I'm going to take a look at both the strategies and the studies, how they work. So I'm going to try to, as I said, keep it a crash course, and this is my best interpretation of it, just so people have an idea how this works. So the nice thing about this, and I always right now remind people, if you're into this, come over to the quantlabs.net/book and get yourself some free stuff and blah blah blah. Anyways, just go over to MotiveWave.com, and I gotta say their documentation is right up there in terms of quality and picking up stuff. It shows how they seriously take this platform and how they want it to achieve some form of mass adoption. So if you go under support guides, and you can also go under software development kit as well, but either one, you're looking for the software development kit, MotiveWave SDK Programming Guide. Okay, now I do know that these seem to change quite a bit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to strongly recommend you to obviously read this guide on how to get through it. But one of the more notable things is at the end. This is to set up your IDE, your integrated development environment, otherwise known as either NetBeans or Java. I believe you can also probably use Visual Code as well from Microsoft to set this up. I prefer Eclipse. That's what I'm more used to. I prefer NetBeans, but anyways, I only use Eclipse here because this is what's instructed in the guide. So here we are. This is chapter 2 or section 12, or chapter 12, sorry. And I'll walk you through it. It's pretty straightforward to set up using Eclipse. Once you get that in, you need to install your code of the studies, and there's also some strategies as well that you can seek out on the community forum. Just do a Google search for it. So what we have here is we've got some study examples, and the one I want to look at is just my moving. There's two. There is the sample MA cross and the sample MA cross strategy. So I'll look at those. So basically, in a nutshell, what is the difference between the two? A couple of things to take away from this is the different editions of MotiveWave. There's 4 right now. They've changed this around, I believe, and they just increased the prices. And I still think it's a pretty good deal for what you're getting. Obviously, there's the Ultimate Edition, which includes everything. That's not a cheap option for a lot of people, but as I said, you can always work up towards it as you get better and more advanced, and you become more successful. That's what we're all about. So. That's not a cheap option. I'm not going to mention the option or the price here because it will change. But the key factors that to be understood is there's the standard trade options or editions, and this one's for market analysis. So if you want to go El Cheapo, this one is more than affordable per month. Or if you want to buy it out, it's still pretty good. The key difference here is that you can do only focus on the indicators or studies. That's all you get. But you do have some powerful things you can do here where you can play around with 283 built-in study indicators. So understand, for that money, that's pretty good compared to some other more expensive options out there. Then you move into some other items as well. Not sure where you can do the strategies. I do believe it is in the Pro edition, and obviously that's going to get more pricier. E.g. example, for example, over a K, 1K. So these two editions is good to play around with. When you start getting serious about live trading, this is where you're going to end up, is either the professional or the ultimate. So knowing that, the version I have here is the ultimate. So what I've shown in the last couple of days all comes from the ultimate edition. So these are your studies. These are like your indicators. And as it says, there's over 280 plus studies, which is awesome. And then you have the strategies as well. So this is how it works. You have a study, which is like an indicator, like a moving average, as I'm going to show you, or an RSI, and very advanced strategies. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And then what will happen is you can use the strategy, which is the complete end-to-end automated trading piece that you can run, and then be able to have it call studies that you customize. So in my case, I was hoping to have visually 3 or 4 studies. I could send out email alerts at once when certain conditions are met. From what I'm seeing, I don't think that's possible. You could send 1 email out per study. So if you're trying to do 2, 3, 4 studies combined and have it send out 1 alert as a signal for a trade, I'm not sure if you can do that you can do that via a visualization by just using a non-programming way. So what we can do here is, what I like to do as a developer is to be able to set and forget. Set the thing up, test it, get it comfortably running with confidence, and then let it run in the background. I've also looked at, you can set up this thing and have it run on a a hosted web environment in Windows, let's say, in Chicago for about 100, maybe $200, depending upon how you customize it and what you're running. So that's something I'm probably going to do. So that's what I'm saying. It's set and forget, where you program the thing, get it up and running, and then move it on to a remote hosted server. So that's the goal. So the strategy is that, and if you get the ultimate, you can have multiple workspaces starting, I believe, in the professional version. So the professional version, when I say workspaces are defined about how you connect into the market. So here, let's say you have all these different supported brokers. Each broker would take up 1 workspace. So if you're going to use Coinigy or Crypto Compare, let's say for crypto, that's 1 workspace you have. But because you decide to only stick with a standard version, let's say, you can only have 1 workspace open at a time. Whereas if you have a professional or the ultimate, you can have multiple workspaces at once. So you could have 1 workspace running Coinigy, another workspace running your interactive brokers, because there's two different brokers, and that's 2 different workspaces that you'll need. The other thing is, same with the data services. I'm using IKEFeed. That's a separate workspace in itself as well. So right here, I'm running IKEFeed as 1 workspace, but at the same time, in the same MotiveWave environment, I can have multiple workspaces running. So knowing that, and knowing what a study is and a strategy, and I believe you can have as many strategies running in 1 workspace. It just depends upon, obviously, memory usage for either the strategy itself, if you're connecting in anything outside of MotiveWave, and MotiveWave itself. So I cannot sit here and say, memory-wise, what you need to do what. That's only for you to do and test. So here we are with all these strategies and studies. So I'll show you our first study that we're going to look at. And again, if you go into the guide I showed you, let me just go over here, maybe table of contents. the table of contents, obviously, this is pretty good. As good as you're going to get from what I've seen from reading other stuff, unless it gets so cumbersome where you have to look over 1,000, 2,000 pages to cover all of the entire API. So here we have this this set of strategies and studies I want to show. So we have here our strategy called My Moving Average. Let's just take a look at that one. So what this will do is there's different examples here set up, but let's focus on the code itself. So right now I'm going to look at the simple MA cross Java. Okay, so here's the study, and how do I know it's a study? Now obviously people can go, do I need to learn Java? Yeah, it's a strong recommendation. If you want a book and you're brand new to it, regardless of your level, one book that I do like a lot that I put up on my Instagram is this book here called Head First Java. It's highly rated. It's kind of funny. You know, it's not a typical programming book, and I like it. So take note of that, Head First Java. So once you are comfortable with Java, then the next step is to understand how it works. So before I forget, one more important thing when it comes to the world of Java, if you go into guides, or better yet, software development kit under support, what you want to do is you want to check out something called Java Doc. Okay, this is just the programming term for all the available that's Python, methods and classes on how things are built in Java, and specifically MotiveWave. And then you could obviously do a search right here. So I'll give you an example. So let's say you're going through all the source code. How it works is we have all our imports for all the different dependencies that we need. This right here is all standard Java. There's quite a bit of functionality, dependencies we need for MotiveWave. That's all fine and good. In here, we define a header where it's annotated, or it's an annotation. And this is for the panel when you load up a particular study. So for instance, this is really important to understand. So if I look up, so what's the name of our function here? Or sorry, our studies. So we're looking for sample MA cross, okay? So you go into MotiveWave, you come under study, look under all studies, and then you go sample moving average cross. Sample moving average cross. Okay, let me do the okay, let's see. So give me a minute here. Maybe gotta double click this thing. Oh, let me just clear out all the local data off this chart. Okay, let me try this again. It's already active. Sample moving average cross. Let me try another chart. Okay, we'll do Europe, US dollar. Okay, so it's still, I'll get a, let me try Japanese yen. Okay, cool. So what I'll do is I'll look for another study. Sample moving average cross. It's not loading up. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about that. But what you do is you'll get all these panels of all the different options you've probably seen in other videos. In here, I've put in my own code just to test file writing. I won't go into that at all. But this right now, I've done some Redis testing. So right here is what you're looking for, all this stuff. So to understand how things work. By the way, if you're interested in what I'm doing here, I put up a whole video for all my elite members on how this works. So if you want that, just go over to the elite section. Obviously, it's a paid membership. So what we're doing here is we're setting all these different classes, like what we call a setting description. We could set up a general tab, and then we set up these different groups with these different parameters. What's really important to understand here is that this right here is the inputs are used across different studies, within other methods within this class of study, as well as we can set our initial parameters as well. I'm by no means, like I said, I'm an expert here. I'm just giving you what so far about a day, well, actually more than a couple of days of learning, but just trying to give you a general high level of how it works. So what we're doing is we're defining our groups with our rows of data that we set for this study, which is defined as a class. Okay, so if that's the case, let me pull up another study here. Okay, so I'll pull up this code. So we have something called my moving average. So we could use this as an example. So in here, it's a very, very general panel. Okay, you can see it here. We have general and options. So these are your tabs I speak of. So it's a general tab. This is a group of inputs. And then we have a path, which is for the chart line if you're planning to load it as an overlay or load it as a, let me just show you again what I mean. So here we have an overlay or a signal. So when they say overlay, it means on the chart itself, right? It's overlaid on top of the chart. A signal allows you to generate signals from this study, and that can be defined in the code. And in the code, that is defined here in this annotated section here. So you have your overlay true, study overlay equals true, and I'm not sure, but there may be a signal in there. But again, I'd refer to that PDF. So as it stands here, you could see all the different options that you have here. I was showing you. So you have input and period. So if I go back and load up that dialog or a control panel, depending upon what operating system you work from, this is what I speak of. So you have input and path, okay? And all of this is controlled by the user. But what you're doing in your code is you're defining it within your class, within the initialize method. So this initialize method gets called when somebody loads up, as I just did, in this case, my moving average study. So this will get called, and whatever the user puts in, all that data gets defined and put in as local objects within the class of the study. So, as I said, you have input and you have path, and that's what you exactly have. Path, input, and period as well, which is also defined here in the class. And then, as I said, we add these as groups, and then we set this thing called a runtime descriptor. Again, it's all described in that PDF guide I just showed you in the programming one for the SDK. And then we can set all our labels and and then we can export the values and what they mean, and these references are later used in the calculate method. So here we can override certain classes, and all of those classes that we're going to override is defined here in the Java doc. So that's what the Java doc is really good for. So for instance, if I want to know what is get mini bars, hopefully I can find it. Depends upon how this is set up or the tool itself. So right here I can see I have a method here called get mini bars, and it's what class is it part of? So it's part of the study master class, the study class that you're inheriting off of when you define the study as here. So that's what we're doing with this custom class, is we're extending the study and kind of implementing some of these other methods that are available to us through the API, and that's basically object-oriented programming. Again, that's something I would expect people to know when it comes to knowing Java. And again, that head first book would be good for that if you don't understand what I'm speaking of. So that's what we're doing here. So that the two core methods that we are going to kind of override here are initialize and calculate. So as I said, when somebody loads up this my move in average panel or dialog, this initializes what gets called. When it's run at the beginning and loaded and executed, calculate is what gets executed. So again, when that happens, so when I speak of, I put in my options, I go create, I now have created my path, as they call it, and which is really this line here, that will get loaded up or instantiated in the code of MotiveWave. So MotiveWave will then call from time to time that class that I've just loaded in as a study called my moving average. So when it needs to do something, it will call this overrid and calculate method depending upon the logic you put in it. So in this case, what we're doing here is we have passed an index and a data context. Okay, so what we're doing here is we get those values that we set up in the initialize method, right? And then we make objects out of them. We have an input, and then we have a period, which is a integer. Obviously, if the index is less than the period, get out. And then we take the data series from MotiveWave itself, the context, because that's the current, call it context or snapshot of all the data that's available at that time when this gets called and calculate. So in the context, we make a series, right? And now we have a series, so we can call some basic calculations on the series, and calculate in this case the EMA and the SMA. If there's no values, and we get out. But what we can do here is we can calculate our moving average based upon these calls of the EMA and the SMA. So when I'm speaking about that, you want to understand where that comes from. Basically, you got to do is follow its series, which is from the data series class. So let me just pull that up. Okay, so we have data series here. So these are all the available methods that we can call. And as I said, we have two that are being called. One is MA. Another one is the SMA right here. So those are the ones that get called. As you can see here, the SMA and the EMA. And then we calculate, with all that info, we calculate the moving average. And then what we do is we set I believe. So what we have here is calculate. See, this is the other thing that you get in these examples with MotiveWave that nothing else offers is comments. And this is why comments are so important for other people to read and understand what you're trying to do. Because if people can't understand what you're trying to do, your code is garbage. Because if you're expecting and assuming people know how to read stuff without comments and they don't understand it, you failed as a programmer. End of story. And that's why I like, I'll even say I love what they've done here, because I can quickly, not quickly, but I can pick it up much easier than looking at a hunk of junk called multi-charts. Don't even do this. Things may have changed, but that's why I dropped multi-charts so fast years ago, because there was no comments. I couldn't make heads or tails. There's no documentation. It was utter trash. So as a result, I didn't move forward with multi-charts because of that. And I'm talking about multicharts.net edition when it first came out, because they didn't put comments in there. So anyways, what we're doing here is calculating the values are stored in the data series using a key, values MA. The key can be a unique value, but we recommend using an enumeration to organize these within your class. Notice in the initialization, we declared a path using this key. So what they're speaking of up here is this guy right here. So they got an enumeration called values of MA. Okay, so now we can maintain a state of a moving average because of this, right? And we get that from the calculated MA. So in our data series, we're able to maintain certain values of certain calculations that this method calls. Okay, and I picked that up from this comment. Really critical. I can't explain it. Okay, so now we have the ability and have running our study, our I should say this. In this case, I'm running the my moving average study. Now, assuming, don't ask me why, the other one's not running, the moving average one, but let's assume it does. Then we're able to call a strategy. So it's sort of similar, but as I said, remember, if you want to do now strategies in MotiveWave, you got to make sure you have the proper addition. That proper addition is start doing strategies is for, as they call them, power traders, automated traders, algorithmic-based traders, programmers, the nerds, the geeks. These are the addition that you would want to use to be able to start building out an actual strategy. This is what you're going to use, this addition. So now you have the ability using this addition for building out a strategy. So you need that. I've said that probably, 10 times now? My apologies. All right, so now we have a strategy. So hopefully I'll be able to run that. So in this case, let me go back to my Eclipse. So we're going to look at sample MA cross strategy. Okay, so here's the code. All right, so let's go back to our MotiveWave. So now I'm going to load in, I'm not sure, sample moving average cross study. Okay, so I'm going to try to load that up, and of course that won't load up. Let me try my custom one. MA cross. Let me try running one of these. Okay, I'm going to try loading up another strategy. It's my environment, how I deployed it. Again, that is explained in the PDF. I'm not going to do that in this. I'm just giving you a high-level kind of crash course on the actual code itself, and kind of giving you an understanding the difference between study and strategies and what additions you need. So with the strategy, I'm going to just randomly load one up. Let's try it. Will this load? No. Okay, so none of those load up. So I'll try this accelerator, deaccelerator strategy. Ah, here we go. Great. All right. So what we have here is we have similar concept with studies, where we have the tabs, we have controls, in each tab on what we want, and the date the user clicks or chooses through a menu or whatever, the values that they want to set up before they launch the strategy. So with that, we create and launch our strategy. Okay, so if I go create, this is what a strategy now looks like. So essentially, it's just as easy. We have our parameters that we set up in the in that dialog at the beginning. Now I can activate it, and now it's going to run. Okay, so that's now live running, and if that accelerator, the accelerator has trading, or it's sending out orders, closing, opening, longing, shorting, blah blah blah, it's going to do that, and that's going to be defined in the code. So let's take a look at a much simpler one. All right. So again, this code should be, and the full explanation should be in the manual, in the path. Okay. So again, it's a very similar setup as a study. It's actually the same, but there's a freaking key difference here. So we have our header, which we define in that dialog when you launch it, when you initialize it, and I use the word, I'm sorry, not initialize. We'll just say on activate. So do understand here, what we're doing is we have defined a class, but we're extending it from the sample MA cross. There is no strategy class. We build our study, okay, and that is extended upon our basic API, at the API level, the SDK level of MotiveWave, their study, and now we can build on that by extending it. Now we move into the world of strategy to use the study. As you can see here, the study that we built, sample MA cross, which is this one, and we're extending it off of that one. Let me just verify with what I just said. Is there a strategy class? No, there's not. Well, it doesn't look like it. Strategy. Okay, so yeah, there's no strategy class, but there's some enumerators, enums. We have an enum for the strategy state. Yeah, so there is no class specific to strategies. As I said, as I thought, we have to extend current strategies. Sorry, for strategy, we extend a customized study class, and that's what we're doing here. So I'm really honing in on that so people understand that. Okay, so now we have this new class called a new strategy class called sample MA cross strategies. And again, you can download this from the forum. I'm sure you could easily do a Google search. So in this case, we have a couple of more methods that we can override. On activate, what do we do when we activate that strategy? So it's another way of saying we activate right here. Now we've activated. So it's going to call that function and deactivate it. Okay, so once we activate it, what we're doing is, if is enter on activate, we're going to do all these steps here. So we're going to get a series. Is last bar complete, or do we grab the last bar, or do we grab the prior bar? Okay, so again, if you don't know what this means, we can look up in the Java doc what that means. So if we go into the Java doc, okay, and look for it, I guess there's the one. We have all the different methods here. Is, enter, on activate, and indicates if a position should be open when the strategy is activated. This feature, blah, 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 blah. there are no parameters passed, and returns true if activate is enabled. So if is enter on activate, you press activate. This is true. Now we can start looking at getting our data series. So we get our series, and then we check to see if we have is last bar complete. Go back into the Java doc and see what that means. Boom. Determines if the values stored in the last bar are complete. Yes or no. And it's a Boolean, yes or true or false. Now, for those that are new in the world of Java, C++, this side is true. If not, it's not complete. This is executed then. So this side is true, false. And whatever bar we have access to, again, we set our series of checking. We have an indicator on what bar we're using, and we're checking to see the values of the slow moving average and the fast moving average. And let me just see if there's a values enumerator here. I'm sure where this is defined. Huh. That one I cannot explain. So we have values as came across here. We have a values numerator right here. Oh, I'm sorry. It's already been defined in the study class that we've inherited by using that extend. So it's already predefined. That makes sense then. Okay, so we set that state of the fast and slow. Okay, so if neither are have any data, just get out. Then we want to know what our trade lots are. And again, if you need to understand that, let's go to the Java doc. So that gets the number of trades lots to use, again, strategies only. So let me just see, let me just close that and relaunch that. Okay, so I'm gonna just verify that. I'm gonna run that. So in here, I'm sure there's a setting for lot sizes. Yeah, trade lots right here. So that data is called from that panel that the user will control as they're about to launch or start up or activate the strategy. So that's where that number comes from. Just so you get a better idea of how it works. It kind of messed me up thinking it just understanding was a problem, but that's why I'm making this video, to help you understand and have me explain it to you and link it all up visually within MotiveWave as you run it. And then here, context. Remember, context is the current state of MotiveWave when this gets called. So whatever instrument in that context within that snapshot, then we have get default quantity. I wonder, let me just see. So again, if you have questions, always go to the Java doc so you have a better, get the default order quantity for this instrument. Not sure where that gets defined, but that could be in the settings. I'm not sure where that's defined, but it's somewhere, obviously in MotiveWave in the settings somewhere, of how much quantity will you assign to that instrument. Okay, so here we're going to figure out, are we doing a long or a short? Again, those comments are really critical. I know this is pretty obvious, but if you're like coming in, I don't want to say not brain dead, but as a true newbie, that comment could save you. So calculating our fast MA or our slow MA, we do a buy or a short. Sorry, buy long or sell short, one of the two. And don't forget our quantity is the trade lots times default quantity. All right, so that's when you activate it, okay? And then we have here as it's running, okay? So let me just go back to our strategy. Let me just see what it has under signal. So in here, this is where you define what I'm about to show you, because the signal can be defined in the study as well. So going back to the code, again, we have our context and our current signal. That's passed from MotiveWave itself. So when that signal does come in, defined as in, let me just confirm. I always double, triple, 100 times check. So our accelerator strategy has a signal, and then our signal can either be sell or buy, and this defines what happens when that signal is generated. So all these events. So a couple of things can happen. We can show an alert, yes. Okay. We can play sound, and we can also, the critical part, send an email out to wherever it goes. And that's set up in the general settings of MotiveWave under window. There's a setting here. Okay, let me just get out. Or maybe it's under configure. I can't remember. I'm still new to the MotiveWave, but there is a setting somewhere in here. It's probably buried. Anyways, let me go back to our strategy. So strategy has its own signal parameters here, and those are the ones I just described, plus the study, my moving average. The study can also have its own set of signals as well. Let me pull up another one. Yeah, let's do this one. I believe studies have a signal as well. RSI. Yeah, so there are signals that you can customize when that gets triggered within the study. And the strategy doesn't worry about it because it's extending the study, but the study itself does all of these parameters as well. So here, this is different, where we have RSI above top guide and below guide, okay? So I can show you that in a minute. But the key here is we're keeping it really simple. So we have our signal that gets generated, and we want these rules to be applied in the code. So what we're doing is get the latest instrument, get the latest position, and again get our latest quantity by the default quantity for the instrument, and our trade lots from the settings of the strategy, I believe, or study or whatever. I've already talked about that. So we get our quantity and we take the absolute value because we want it to be positive. Or sorry, the quantity has to be positive. My apologies, regardless if the position is negative or not. So if it's less than 0 and signal is crossing above, then we do a buy. If it's greater than 0 and it's crossing below, we do a cell. And that's pretty well it. Before I forget, one other thing I want to show you is when you download from the forum, you have the ability to look at all of the available study and the source code. So in my case, the one I was just showing you here, the RSI, I don't know if that's under general. Yeah, so it's under general. So here's our relative strength indicator I just showed you. So general, advanced, signals, and options. Now, if you want to know how to build these panels, as an example, you can do this. So you just go under general here in the source code, look for relative strength indicator or RSI if it's in here. Relative let's see, it might be in one of the other generals here. RSI divergence. I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but maybe I might have to use. So I'm unsure where to find that, but there is obviously a lot of code to work from. Let's check out Chaikin money flow. Okay, so you can see that there is source code here. This does walk you through all the different options in those panels, those dialogues when you launch the study. So let me just see if we can link it up, or what's a better example? There's no signal in here. That's okay. So you have general. So we're looking for Chaikin money flow. Okay. Study money flow, which is this one. Yeah, so there's only two options, two different tabs. But I'm pretty sure this is not going to help you out in great detail. But I've given you where to look for in the Java docs, obviously in the guides. Download the source code if you can. I think you could just do a simple search on Google and do I don't know, MotiveWave study source code, and here you go under SDK support. So we have it right here in the forum, as I thought, and there you go. The different on the Google Drive, and be able to download it. So hopefully that'll help you out. And got any questions? I probably won't be the best. I would probably recommend you go and participate in the forum, ask your questions there if it's related around MotiveWave itself. Other than that, thanks for watching. Have yourselves a good day.